Okay, we're good.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the workshop here, January 10th, 2023. Wow, it's the first meeting of 2023. That's interesting to say. I want to welcome you all to the city of Holly Hill. I want to go ahead and call this meeting to order and remind you all, if you have any cell phones or electronic devices, that now would be the time to silence those so they don't disturb the meeting. And at this point, I will ask Mrs. Manning to call the roll.
Commissioner Penny?
Here.
Commissioner Curry?
Here.
Commissioner Danio?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson? Here. Mayor Via?
Here. And now I'm going to turn this over to our city manager, Mr. Forte.
Okay, so we're having this workshop because on your agenda tonight is a PUD for this multifamily project at 3rd Street and Ridgewood Avenue. And it's a PUD, and Brian will get up and maybe explain a little bit more about it. But one of the elements that has to be chosen tonight is the elevations, what the architectural drawings are. So the original packet, they had submitted a drawing that we didn't particularly like, and they used that mostly as a placeholder in submitting for the PD packet that was put together. So they had sent us a couple of elevations that are in your agenda packet, but then yesterday they had sent a couple more elevations, and we'd like for the commission to make the decision on which of these elevations you like best, and then at the commission meeting tonight, that'll be inserted into your motion and incorporated into the PD for them to go ahead and move forward with the development. So the project had already gone to the BOPA and has been approved. So tonight it's just a matter of selecting an elevation. The developers are here to make sure that they're in agreement or can concur with what we're recommending to move forward. And we'd just like to get that ironed out before the commission meeting so that at the meeting we can just move forward seamlessly.
Thank you. And Joe, did the BOPA review any of the elevations? Or was it just the project itself?
I'll let Brian talk about that. I think the BOPA did see elevations, but not all the ones that you're going to be seeing tonight.
Okay, and one more question. Can you, if you have your email there, can you send me the new one so I can have it here on my computer? It's just harder for me to see.
I can do that. I sent him to Val to pull it up here, but I'll forward it to you right now.
Perfect, thank you. Do you want to turn it over at this time to?
Yep, Brian, I'll give you a quick update.
Awesome. All right, Mr. Walker. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission. So, as stated, later on you'll be hearing about a proposed rezone for an area that is on the northeast corner of Ridgewood Avenue and 3rd Street. It's 5.4 acres. Right now, it is basically zoned for 2 7-story buildings for 172 age-restricted affordable housing units, and the applicant is applying to have a 120-unit multifamily non-age-restricted community there. So one of the things when they are doing a planned development that they need to include are elevations so that you have an idea when you approve this PD of what these are going to look like. And that is put into the package along with a written development agreement, and you are asked to adopt the entire package. When it went to the Board of Planning and Appeals, we did not have at that time updated elevations. So they were notified that the elevations were going to be replaced. So they weren't able to choose elevations at that time. Since then, we have received updated elevations, which the city manager and myself spoke with the developer and were able to choose a few from among many that they presented to us that we thought might look nice in the city. So there are those that are now in your agenda packet. And then since then, actually, I believe yesterday we received some updates which were enhancements to what is in the agenda packet. So you'll have basically about 5 elevations to look at and choose from, and that's why we're here at this workshop, for you to look at those, pick which ones you like, and then those will be the ones that you'll be asked to adopt at the first reading.
And Mr. Walker, are we discussing any specifics of the project here tonight?
That'll be at the regular
At
meeting.
the actual regular meeting.
Tonight is just the workshop is just for elevations.
Okay,
I
perfect.
mean, unless, Mayor, if you have something you want to discuss,
Question? Okay.
it doesn't stop you from doing that.
Okay, I'll wait till the commission meeting. Perfect. Are there any questions for staff before we move forward? All right. So do you want to hand it over to the developer to show the elevations?
Yeah, we-
Would you like,
We can-
Either way, I mean, we can just
Yeah,
go
we can
through
just go
them.
through them.
you guys are both familiar with them?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Brian and I have looked at them, we've sent them out, hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at it in advance, but, we can just go through each one of them.
Okay.
And then I'll have Val pull up the email that's got the other ones on there, and then kind of narrow down to what you think is.
So let's do it that way, and commission, let's kind of keep track of which ones we like, which ones we definitely don't like. And then if we have questions for
You need
the
to say
developer, then we'll go ahead and ask those after we review these.
No, go with the items that are on the agenda first. Yeah, these. So I think there are 5 elevations in the agenda packet. Val, can you move back to the first page?
Just a little further. There.
Okay. Although options 1, 2, and 3 are shown as 4-story buildings, the development will consist of 3-story buildings.
Yeah, this is a
Each-
3-story, not a 4-story. So if you see a 4-story rendering, just imagine that
Bottom
one of the
floor.
center floors is gone and it's
Oh.
3 stories.
So there's option 1, very modern. Option 2, also very modern. Option 3. So,
Those are the first 5. So why don't we now jump to the other ones, this way you can kind of get an idea, and then you can go back and we'll look at each one of them individually and see what you want to rule in or rule out.
everybody close your eyes. No, don't look at the password. Kidding, you can't see it. For the record.
So if you click on the picture, Val, I think it opens up, there you go. They're all very similar, but different roof designs, and some of the bump outs and the patios, are a little bit different.
So I have a question that probably the developer might have to answer. So are the first 5 that are in our packet, are those still available to be chosen, or are these the updated versions that we have to choose from? You can come up to could you come to the mic? Thank you. And just introduce your name for the record.
My name is Ram Penubali. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk to you
Yes, sir.
this evening. So the latest ones which we submitted are nothing but like the enhanced version of the original ones. So with more updates on the walls, outdoor walls, and with patios. So,
Okay.
and the latest ones fit into the current site plan,
Okay.
the size of the site plan. So.
Oh, yeah, specific for this project. The other ones are
Yeah.
examples of other projects. Are the other projects that are in our packet, are those specific developments that you or your team have worked on?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They're not the same.
They're not the same, they're different.
No, they're not the same. These renderings are more catered to the exact project that they're.
The site, the
Submitted.
5-acre site, like so, with the frontage that you have. So the latest designs, the enhanced ones that will fit as per the architect.
So which ones are we taking from, these or the first 5?
The last 3.
So I
So this one is also there even in the original design that was shown. So this is just enhanced version with the roof on the
Okay.
top, so.
So basically, throw out the first 5 and only look at these 3, correct?
There are 5 actually that.
Yeah, there's still 5 on here, too.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm just reviewing it here on my computer.
So I guess you could start out simply by asking yourselves if you like the flat contemporary roof design, or if you like the roof design that's got dimension to it. And if you can do that, that cuts the options in half right there.
Do you want us to comment, Mr. Mayor? Or?
Yeah, this is a workshop, so feel free to
So,
just.
my personal opinion is the ones with the flat roof are, your term was modern, my term was contemporary. I don't think they fit the neighborhood as well, so I liked the architectural detail on the top, and I prefer the one that's more of the pyramid or hip shape, that one, on the top than the one that is just square on the top. So all those with the flat roof, I would kick them all out. I would go to the two that have the architectural enhancement on the roof, and I like that one. I like that one the best.
This one here,
Yes.
right. That's the same, except the roof is different, right? Kind of?
Are there numbers on these, Val? Do you see? Or no?
It just, the one with the hip roof there looks a little more coastal. The others look more college campusy to me, if that makes any sense.
I would say this would be number one.
Okay. This is number 2,
And so forth.
3. Which one did you like, John?
I think
That
those are the
that's
same, aren't they?
That one right there.
Isn't that the same?
It looks very similar.
Similar, but yeah.
I think I like 4 better than
I like that
3.
The
That's
roof on the
the
floor
one
is
right
different
there.
from 3.
I like that one.
That's number 4, isn't it?
Yeah, that's 4.
I like number 4 as well.
And the colors are the colors, or the colors can change, doesn't matter. That's kind of boring.
Yeah, out of these choices,
That one, right?
I like 2 and 4 the best. So if the commission likes 4 the best, 2 is I like the color scheme. It feels nice, but
Well, they said the colors can change.
yeah, they could.
Yeah. That
4 is really nice.
That's not the one.
That looks like a hotel to me. And that
Yeah.
looks like a Days Inn to me. And
Yeah.
that looks like a nice luxury apartment.
That right there is the one, right?
I don't mean to be insulting, but that's just what it looks like to me.
Is the designer in the room? Oh, thank goodness. Just tell them what we like at the end, not what we don't like. Okay. Mr. Johnson, I haven't heard if you weighed in on this.
I like to think the pool is really great too. I kind of look at it perspective of how much trouble it'd be to build it. The railings and the walls and all those things are big to it. How much more expensive it would be to build it, but I think if we're getting to decide, not them, I would pick number 4.
Okay.
If I was the builder, I would probably pick the ones with the least amount of cost.
Number 1.
Which is number one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
The rent just went up $100 a month.
yeah. Mr. Danio?
No, I agree. I like the look of that one.
Yeah.
Same.
Curry? You're the one that picked it, so,
Yeah.
unless you change your mind. And just to go into that, we appreciate you listening to our concerns. From our standpoint, this is a very, very visible part of our city. And this is going to be a large project that, as you know, Ridgewood in our city is mostly built out already. And so this commission has been very, very, we keep our eye on the ball of what the aesthetic of what our city looks like today, what it used to look like, what it looks like today, and what it's going to look like tomorrow. And so we appreciate you coming to us to work with us on the designs of this. This was very important to me in my conversations with staff, and I asked them to reach out and have that conversation as well. So we appreciate you understanding that as well. So I too am in agreement. I think that number 4 is the most aesthetically pleasing of the bunch. So that was pretty quick to come to consensus for this
I
commission.
figured you
So
would. Some people had doubt, but I thought you would.
sometimes it would take a lot longer. So with that, I think we're good to go on that. So, Mr. Forte, is there anything else we need to discuss in this workshop about that?
Yes, I do have something else, but not for these folks.
Okay,
So,
all right.
Thanks
Well,
for giving this opportunity to everyone here. Thanks, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And we still have a commission meeting with you in it, so stick around. All right,
So
Mr. Forte.
I need to go over a little bit of a dilemma with you. Antoine's sitting up here because he is an engineer, and this deals with the RV park that Robin Hanger and Reiner, the Martins, are building up on the Bishop's property on Flomish Avenue. So what has happened, now they're using Zev Cohen engineers for their site plan, their civil work, and we, of course, use Meat Hunt to review the project. So they have submitted their documents, and I'm dealing specifically with the stormwater portion of this. And the stormwater has been approved by St. John's Water Management District, and they mostly deal with retention and water quality. Andrew is concerned with floodplain and flood control. So if you can envision a big stormwater pond, and it's kind of shaped like a funnel. It's kind of narrow at the bottom, and it comes out like this. And when they create the compensating storage, what they do is they widen the bottom. So now you have more of like a cylindrical shape. And when they use the calculations, the industry standard has been using the seasonal high water mark. The seasonal high water table is where they start their calculations, and then they add 1 foot of water volume in there as it increases. So Andrew is concerned that when they get to the higher, between the 4 and 5 foot mark, it actually shows not a negative, but a reduction in the volume, meaning that I want to almost say no harm, no foul. The amount of water that's on the property before a storm is equal to the amount of water that would be on the property after the storm, because they would hold it. The difference is used, and that's under the seasonal high water table. When you go to the 10-year high water table, which is what Andrew's considering, it's going to require the project to expand that pond by 30%. Wow. So when this was first brought to my attention, my first response is, I am not an engineer. I cannot overrule the engineer's recommendation. The engineer is the city. When he speaks, he represents the city, looking out for the best interest of the city, making sure the property is not going to flood, that there's not going to be extending complications once the project is complete. So I spoke with Andrew, and he explained that to me. And then yesterday I met with Zev Cohen and the applicants, and they explained their version to it, and I think, as a layman, I understand it as I've explained it. Now, I might not have explained it in great detail, but that's how I understand it. So what Andrew is now saying is, in his professional opinion, he is not comfortable with what Zev Cohen has presented for the final product. The problem that we have is in several cities around the county, they have a code that says you will start your compensating storage calculations using the seasonal high water table. Our code doesn't say that. So that's giving Andrew the latitude to say, well, I'm not comfortable with that, so I want you to use the 10-year table. So I had met with Antoine this morning because he's an engineer and he can have that conversation with Andrew that I can't, and I'll ask Antoine to fill in a little bit here. But Andrew's basically saying, absent the language in your code, it's more of a policy decision now. And the policy is whether or not you want to use the seasonal high water mark or you want to use the 10-year mark in this project. Now, what I can tell you is, if you agree with Andrew that using the 10-year table is the way to go, which would be the more conservative and protective of the city and the property, it will kill the project. I don't believe that the applicant will move forward. If you disagree with Andrew, now you're taking on somewhat of a responsibility or liability that if that property floods in the future, you have an engineer that said, I told you not to do it, and you have a commission that may be saying, we're going to disagree with you and we're going to move forward anyway. So it's kind of I'm not comfortable, Brian is not comfortable, we are not engineers, we're not policymakers to overrule the engineer's recommendation or to set the policy. You're probably not comfortable overruling the engineer's recommendation, but you can set the policy. So I'm going to turn it over to Antoine to kind of fill in some of the blanks that I might have created.
The issue is, Commissioners, is the flood zone compensation. That's what Andrew is really concerned about. With the seasonal high water, 3 of the 4 times, there's no issue. But number 4, there could be flooding, or there will be flooding, because the site has lost some of its flood zone capabilities. So that's his concern. Like Joe said, it's a policy thing. The permits is in hand. The problem is you might have flooding on the site. That's the big question. Do you want to take the risk of allowing the development to move forward and have the chance of being flooded on certain storms? Once every 4 to 5 years, once every 5 to 6 years, 10 years, or something like that.
So I wanted to give you a couple of options.
Right.
Now, understanding that when we reviewed the Mirage Pond, that used the seasonal high water. When we evaluated Pictona, that used the seasonal high water. We never really used the 10-year on anything, so this is almost like the first time. So you have a couple of options. You can simply sit there as the elected body, the policymakers, and say, well, we're going to set the policy that says we're going to use the seasonal high water mark. Done. You take on that responsibility of a problem in the future. Another option is we could have Andrew come to the next meeting and let him provide you his perspective on this, and then make a little bit of an informed decision based on your engineer's recommendation. You can hear from the applicant's engineers, but they're the applicant's engineers. They're not our engineers. They're not the city's engineers. A third option is you could ask us to solicit the opinion of another engineer. We have another engineering firm under contract with the city, I believe Parker Mitchenberg.
Yes.
And we can go to Parker Mitchenberg and ask him not to review the whole site, but to look at the 2 positions. Look at the position from Zev Cohen and what they're proposing, and look at Andrew's position. But in my amateur opinion, I think Parker Mitchenberg's office would ask 2 questions. Number 1 is, what does your policy say? And the policy doesn't say anything. And number 2 is, what does the commission want it to be? So I don't know if a third-party engineer is going to put their stamp of approval on something when you have the city's engineer recommending a conservative approach, and the applicant's engineer recommending not so much of a conservative approach, but within standard.
Right.
Joe, real quick, Antoine's an engineer.
Yes, that's why he's here.
What does Antoine say?
What Antoine said, I'm not a stormwater engineer, and we asked Mead and Hunt to review the details, which is the modeling. It's a policy thing. Has nothing to do. As an engineer, I would say we go with the more conservative one, so in the future you don't have any flooding on the site. But that means the project can go away.
Vice Mayor, you had a question?
We recently approved a project, Newkirk Engineering was the engineer, and when Harry came and discussed that, it sounded very similar, like maybe it's in the same floodplain zone, and I guess what I would question is, what watermark do we use for that project?
Well, are you talking about 6th Street?
Yeah.
Sixth Street did not have, did Sixth Street have compensating storage? Yeah, so we did, off the record, ask Harry Newkirk what he, as an engineer, uses as his
Right.
standard, and he said that he uses the seasonal high water mark.
Right, and
Now-
so my position as risk manager, you know, an engineer is going to give you the most, it depends on which side, they're going to give you the most conservative opinion they can. Don't jump out of that plane because the parachute might not open, okay? That's the risk you're going to accept. People jump out of planes all the time, but I think that if this commission changes the rules without informing the general public that we've changed our policy, I think the applicant, if the project is killed, is going to sue the city. I think you're going to have a lawsuit either way.
We don't have a policy to change, though.
Yeah,
Our policy's silent, so I would say, being judge and jury, if the policy's been silent, you go back to what you've been doing for the last 100 years. And if for the last 100 years we've been using seasonal high water, and now all of a sudden you say you want to change the standard for a new applicant, and we just approved another applicant 6 weeks ago,
well, they're different. They may be in the same floodplain, they're
Right.
probably not at the same elevation, but you can't compare two projects, they're just simply,
no, you can't compare, but if the standard is this, if you say you have to jump 10 feet, and the industry standard is 10 feet, and now all of a sudden, because it flooded, we say you have to jump 12 feet, but we didn't change our policy.
but keep in mind, I think some of the decision that Andrew made, if he would have made this decision 4 months ago, it may have been different. But we just had 2 hurricanes that came through.
Right.
That have significantly changed the amount of stormwater and how it moves about in this city, and I think that's coming into play. So,
And you may not know this, maybe this is a question more for you, is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a very important canal that runs directly through the middle of that property. And
Correct.
so is that what's contributing more to this than
No.
maybe possibly the Sixth Street property?
no, the canal is still there, it's being relocated, but it doesn't really have an effect on the retention portion of what we're talking about with the
Okay.
compensating storage.
I have another
How do you
question.
relate? Are they just digging another canal?
Yeah, they did it up on the Mirage, they did the same thing.
Yeah.
So, for the sake of some uncertainty, I would recommend that you ask Andrew to come here and explain to you from his position as your city engineer, he works for you, he's your city engineer, and let him explain to you so that you can make a more informed decision as to whether or not you want to set a policy at what level.
Right. And then to Vice Mayor Penny's question, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
If, let's just say that we agree with Andrew and we say that it has to be 30% bigger, the retention area, then, and Scott's not here, we could talk about this later, but how much does that open us up to
Scott's
a
gonna
lawsuit?
tell you
Because we
anybody
have
can
approved
sue
this
you.
project, correct? At
I'm
this
sorry?
point? We have approved this this project.
It's not come to you, the PD has not come to you for approval yet.
Not the full approval,
No.
but we've,
We've supported it.
right.
So Scott would tell you, anybody can sue you anytime for anything. And, he can't put odds on whether or not
Right.
the applicant is going to sue for this. I've heard that it's a 30% increase to the pond, which, when you add that 30% and you take away the
Right.
the
Parking.
campsite spaces, makes it impractical for them to move forward.
Okay. Sorry, she had a question.
I just would like to know if you have any idea, or if maybe we could find out before this meeting, if it takes place, what are the policies of neighboring jurisdictions?
Some cities have written policies, and some cities do not. And I believe if you ask most engineers, they will tell you that the standard, the industry standard, has been the seasonal high water mark.
Can we maybe inquire from other cities what their policies are?
We can do that, Commissioner, but in reality, I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters if 5 are one way and 5 are the other, or 8 are one way and 2 are the other. I think it comes down to this city and how conservative you want to be or not. It's like any other thing. If I ask enough people, I'll get the answer I want. So I can probably go around there and find 5 cities that use the 10-year and 5 cities that don't.
My concern is I do not want to do something that is going to set me up for liability.
Well, and I think that's why we need Andrew to be here, so that Andrew can explain why he's recommending the 10-year over the seasonal. And he should have a better idea as to whether, did he just go to a conference and the conference is saying, well, this is where the industry's going, you might as well start now? Or is Andrew just deciding that based on what he's experienced from the last storms? So I think getting his input is more important than what other cities are doing.
But we already know what his answer is going to be. His answer is going to be hold it to the higher standard.
We know what his answer is going to be, but we don't know why.
Well, because he's trying to protect his
Well,
butt.
Yeah, but he has a scientific reason. He doesn't have a personal opinion. He has a scientific reason for saying what he's saying. I
But
can
in order-
argue a personal opinion.
No,
I can't argue a
my
scientific.
my problem is that this has never come up, and we have a project that's in the pipeline being developed, and all of a sudden, the industry standard, from what I'm hearing, is seasonal high water. If 14 of the 16 cities in Volusia County use the 10-year high, then we should change it. If the industry standard and the majority of the cities use seasonal high water, maybe we need to look at this in the future, but I don't think it's fair to this project that's in the middle of the road to change our silent policy to a stricter standard than the industry standard. I just don't think that's good business. I don't think it's,
I would like to see what other jurisdictions do to have an idea if this is something that we can look at putting in our policy, that we only use the seasonal and not the 10-year table like he's wanting to use.
I would guess if you
That's my purpose, because I don't want to do something that is not of the norm and that is going to set me up for more liability.
Right, but again, I don't think you should compare to other cities because their codes may have been written 20 years ago. I think you need to hear what your professional has to say.
I definitely want to hear from him.
I mean, we can get you a comparison, and I can tell you today, I believe that the industry standard is the seasonal high water mark.
But I'd like some authority on that.
Well, your authority is your engineer.
Okay, so he's going to be able to answer my questions then.
Yes.
Okay.
but if the industry standard is seasonal, and an applicant comes to us, and the industry standard is seasonal, and they design it to that industry standard, we're moving their cheese. We're saying, hey, now all your calculations and all the hundreds of thousands of dollars you spent up to this point are useless. And if we had told them in the beginning, hey, you got to use a 10-year, the project, they might not even bought the property.
And the only argument I can say to that is we've had flooding in this city. If we would have made the change 20 years ago, maybe we wouldn't have that flooding.
And I understand that, but if you make policy change, people need to know that you moved their cheese before they
I
start
agree.
eating it.
I agree
That's the
100%
whole
with
problem.
that.
Well,
But it's-
I definitely want to hear from
I
our engineer.
think it is important to still hear from our engineer, Vice Mayor. But a couple questions is, has St. John's already taken a look at this?
St. John's approved the permit,
Okay.
but their permit is based on water retention and water quality, not on floodplain.
Okay, not on floodplain.
Right.
Is there a state agency or a federal agency that deals with floodplain?
FEMA. And for FEMA to take a look at this, because I brought this up with their engineers yesterday, that is an option to appeal to FEMA, but they said that they felt FEMA doesn't deal with this small level. When FEMA gets involved, they're looking at floodplain over a greater area.
City.
Right, and they may not even look at this, and if they chose to, it would probably take so long, it would put them out.
Could we just contact a representative to see what the industry standard is with FEMA?
I I don't know if that's
I
possible.
don't know if they would know that, if they're
Okay.
not dealing with
Yeah, that's a
individual
whole
projects.
bureaucratic process.
Okay.
Are there other projects currently that are looking to be developed, already been approved, possibly looking to be approved, that are basing their projections on the seasonal high level as opposed to the 10-year? And so if we were to make that move, is it only affecting this one property because this is the one that,
To my knowledge, I think this is the only property being affected. The Sixth Street property is already approved. The Third Street property, I don't believe has any compensating storage involved. The Mirage, that's already been approved, was using the seasonal high water table as their base elevation. And I'm not aware of any other project that's on the books that's needing compensating
So
storage.
the high water was used for Mirage?
The seasonal.
Oh,
high
the
water.
seasonal, okay, not the 10-year.
Did you say Pictona too, Joe?
Pictona, he said coming.
Oh, no, but
Pictona was done already.
Done.
And Pictona used seasonal.
I just wanted, to, he brought up a good point about they're already kind of midstream. This is something kind of we should have,
Well,
you start throwing out hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment that was kind of, it's like, we're going to be at fault one way or another. We're going to be at fault for getting
don't-
them to this point, or in 10 years if something happens.
now you understand why Joe and Brian aren't going to make
Yeah,
that
no, I
decision.
could see that, yeah, passing the
you're
buck,
darned if
yeah.
you do and darned if you don't.
but
Yeah.
I will say this, Commissioner Daniel, though, and I hear both sides of this, because this is actually, we're in between a rock and a hard place.
Yep.
Because I agree with you with that. They're moving forward, and we didn't stop them previous to this. But there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. And if the right thing is, and if the new standard is a 10-year watermark, then we need to look to do that. I know you have seen, we all saw, and you in insurance, the devastation of flooding, people still not even back in their own homes, and people that are falling through the cracks. I just spoke to someone over the weekend that's fallen through the cracks. She's paid insurance all her life, and her neighbor didn't, and FEMA's helping them out. And because it was a named storm, now she's not getting all of her reimbursement for her all of her home that makes her house a home. And she's fallen through, and she doesn't have the money for it, crying. And that's one story out of thousands across Florida. But so if our engineer, I think, has scientific evidence to present us, like I said, there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. But I don't know what that exactly means to the extent of this project and maybe several of the other projects. But I appreciate you bringing this up. This is the first I'm hearing it of this.
This is hot off the
And-
press.
I was gonna
Okay.
say, that was kind of like a,
Yeah, it's just thrown
Sounds like
at
the
us.
commission
This
might be
is-
buying a $2 million retention fund.
This is hot off the press, and I only met with Antoine about it this morning, and I figured here's an opportunity that we could, I bring you all up to date at the same time. Not that you have to make a decision tonight, but maybe you could help give me direction on moving forward. And I think that direction is hearing from your engineer at the next meeting, and then understanding, and we could have Scott there so that you can understand the legal consequences that may result of either decision that you make.
that's what I would like to
I
definitely
agree.
do, Mayor.
And sorry, Commissioner Johnson's been waiting patiently. I told him I'd go to you. Yes, you do.
I agree with what he's saying, and what he's saying. It kind of is going about timing only. If we hadn't had the bad flood we had a while back, this wouldn't even be at the table at all. It's just a simple matter of, he'd already planned this out, everything is to the standards where it already was in place for everybody. We're gonna change it, it makes it look like we're one city that tries to take more control than anybody else of every project there is. And me as a property owner, and somebody that has to do a project myself, you can see it, you can feel it. When the cities, the counties, the state, and put so many things on you to make it cost so much extra money, and then all of a sudden you have to lose the project anyway. Of course they're gonna sue you for it, because the property owner's already put a lot into it, and I've been right there beside that property for over 50 years. And one time I've seen it flood like that, and it's been vacant for 40-something years. and we have an opportunity to do something good with it and make something really happen there, we need to go with it and not change the rules. And I think we would be changing the rules, not just putting something in place unless we get another unbiased opinion from a different engineer, just like a mediator would be, and have an attorney present as well to say what to do. That's the way I look at it.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
And I think this is a great conversation if we could go back in history 100 years when the city was being developed and planned. But you know I'm the numbers guy, right? So our city's 4 square miles. If we're talking about increasing the compensating storage by 30%, that's 3 acres. What is the effect of a potential increase in flooding on 3 acres across 4 square miles? It's probably about this much. So when you look at it, if we're making this policy change going forward, I agree, let's do it citywide going forward. This application is in the middle of the process, I agree with Commissioner Johnson, but if we look at the impact, what's the impact of 3 acres on 4 square miles? I think it's going to be a flea on the back of a dog.
I think with all due respect, Commissioner, the question is not 3 acres on 4 square miles, the question is 3 acres on 20 acres. That's what we're talking about, is what is the effect of those 3 acres on that 20-acre parcel? It's got nothing to do with the rest.
Right, but I thought you said that they would retain all their water. They're retaining all their water.
Well, again, that's the science part that I don't know all of. I think that what they were saying is in a typical time period,
Right.
no harm, no foul, I think it retains. But in these anomalies,
Right.
it's such excessive flooding that,
next.
and I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means that property floods or if it means that
Right.
the street to the west
Right.
is also gonna
And
flood.
if, I think, well, I have no scientific facts, but I believe that if we had another event, if we had 2 feet of water in the time frame of the last hurricane, it doesn't matter what standard you built it
That's what I
to.
was just
The
gonna say.
entire city is going to flood again.
I was just going to say that.
We had a 500-year event.
Well,
That's,
again, I don't know. I think that's what Andrew was saying, is that in another 500-year event, and these events, just because they're called years, doesn't mean they occur in those years.
right.
You can have a 100-year event every 5 years.
It's just the odds.
So
Right.
what he's saying is, another event like that, that this pond will be able to hold that compensation.
Right. And that's his job. His job is worst-case scenario.
That's what your attorney's job is, too.
Yeah.
Commissioner Curry?
Really, in all honesty, I understand we don't want to blow this project out of the water. None of us do.
No.
That would be the worst thing to happen. However, I think as stewards of this community, we have the responsibility to listen to our expert, give explanation as to why he wants to come to this conclusion. I think if we just say, no, it should be this and we should stay with that, we're disregarding the person we're hiring to give us advice, because none of us have any kind of professional knowledge, even close to what Andrew has.
And that's my point. Let's
It's
hear
not
from,
going to hurt to listen to
right,
him.
let's hear from our expert.
I think for the betterment of this community, we've got to listen to our expert that we pay.
Right.
Otherwise, why do we pay him?
And you'll make
We need him.
you'll make an informed decision.
Exactly, and that's what I want to be able to do.
Right. And my closing comment, because we're going to hash this out later, I'm sure, but I know Mead Hunt reviewed this file. I know Andrew reviewed this file. Did Andrew review those other files we talked about, or did Mead Hunt review? Because I don't know if there's a Mead or
I
there's a
think
Hunt.
Andrew reviewed all except, I think David reviewed one of them. You remember?
Andrew,
Yeah, Andrew by far has been your stormwater engineer for years, where, boy, what's his
Ah, he
name?
retired.
David?
No, the other one, Brad.
Brad.
Brad is
Brad.
your,
Utility.
he's your water plant guy, and David is your lift
Transportation.
stations, and so they have their areas of expertise. But Andrew, and prior to him, was actually Quentin Hampton, Mark Hampton. Mark Hampton was your engineer for a long time, back when Milt Hallman was here. You know,
You're going back.
Unfortunately, I was here. So Andrew historically has been your stormwater guy, and he knows this city better than anybody. He did retire, but they've retained him as a consultant
Oh, okay.
for these projects.
Got it.
Commissioner Daniel?
Yeah, just real quick. I'd like to hear right from the horse's mouth, if we had 22 inches of rain, whatever it was, in 48 hours, is it going to matter? Whether it's 10-year, 1-year, seasonal, or whatnot? I don't think there's any amount of stormwater, or whatever you want to call
Oh,
it, that's going to hold that water.
Oh, there are calculations that will determine that. So I can't give you an answer. He's done the calculations. He may be able to bring you a table that says, you know, yes, that pond can hold it, or no, it can't. But I
Excuse
can't
me,
tell you
Joe.
that.
He did not do the calculation. He's asking the consultants to Zeph Cohen to do the calculation to see the results so we can make the determination.
Okay.
That's what he's saying.
So here's what I'm seeing, and we're coming up
Yeah, correct.
on a hard break here because it's 5:53. We have a commission meeting at 6 o'clock. As you said, Commissioner Curry, none of us are a professional in engineering that is on this dais, with the exception of you, but you're not a part of the commission.
Well,
So
I didn't mean you.
we don't have enough information at this point to do that, but I'm hearing consensus because I'm in favor of also hearing from Andrew, our engineer, and I also, when you ask him to come, I believe you should tell him to listen back to this conversation so he can kind of get a better understanding of where the questions may be. I think there was a lot of very intelligent questions that need to be answered. We need to cross those things off, and I believe that it's going to require a full workshop in and of
Yeah,
itself.
I'll
So-
have Val take the snapshot of this section, and we'll email it to him so that he could hear it in advance, and then hopefully he can come. We'll schedule a workshop, hopefully for the next meeting. We were planning to do capital.
Yeah, when we do capital.
We're doing capital next? Okay. All right.
Does it have to be on a meeting night? I mean,
Well, time is of the essence for the
so
applicant.
that's what I'm saying. Can't we do it on an off meeting week?
It might be a good idea to do it
'Cause I
on an
think we've
off-meeting
got
week, and maybe we should
An
do it,
extra week coming
you know,
up, don't we?
at 4 o'clock,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and save the time.
And then that way too, it doesn't have to be a hard stop at 6 o'clock
Yeah.
for the
And that's,
commission
that way
meeting.
we
Yeah.
can get it out of the way.
So my only other question that I would have for you is, I want you to hear from your engineers, from the city engineers. Do you want to hear from Zev Cohen, or does that become a debate between two engineers? You know, I think Andrew is going to present their portion of it accurately. They all agree. I can tell you, they all agree on what's been presented. They just don't agree on why Andrew is making that recommendation.
Personally, I'm okay with hearing Andrew and hearing that side, and then we can discuss, and then if we need further, we can always have that at the very next meeting. So,
Yeah, because I don't
yes,
think
Vice
there's,
Mayor.
Here's my concern. From the developer's perspective, time is money.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're holding, that's
Every
fine.
day they
It's got-
hold this project, inflation is causing construction costs to go up. And it's easy for us to kick it down the can 2 weeks, 2 months, but these guys need a decision. Are they in or out? Because someone's going to be left holding the bag for a $2 million piece of dirt that they can't do anything with.
Yeah.
well, that's why I said we could do it on an off week. We don't have to do it on a meeting.
No, I can do it at Andrew's earliest convenience.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it at Andrew's earliest
Absolutely.
convenience, so we'll have Andrew here answer all of our questions and explain exactly how he came to this calculation and what it actually means too. And just to add, Vice Mayor, I think it's not the whole city. I think it's localized, and we can't do anything about the development over the last 100 years, but moving forward for new projects, I think it's important to make sure to safekeep the surrounding properties as well.
I wholeheartedly agree with you with new projects. The problem I have is that this project is in
Yeah.
the works.
And I hear you.
We didn't tell them up front, and someone moved the cheese, and someone's gonna have to pay for that cheese.
Yeah,
That's,
I wholeheartedly hear you on that one.
That's-
We're in
Hopefully
between a
we'll
rock
get
and a
some
hard
answers.
place.
That's my concern.
I mean, yeah.
All of a sudden, we decided we don't want it.
No.
Well, no, not yet. We're not making any
decide that
decision.
at all. No,
That's,
sir.
I don't believe so. I want to hear the science.
Completely incorrect, Commissioner
I
Johnson.
mean, I hate dragging you into this.
No, we have
It is
to
a
be. This is a policy decision,
And
and
in my
it shouldn't be
25
made at,
years,
this shouldn't be made at the
I
staff
agree.
level, and I would be upset if it was made at
Yeah.
the staff level. This is a very important issue that affects
in
the
25
community
years
that
of doing
we
this,
need
I've never
to,
had it where I couldn't get the engineers to come to some
Right.
consensus on it.
right.
So, all right.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
plan for
Forte. Is there anything further before we break? All right. This workshop is now adjourned. We will start the city commission